Your dog is dangerous and needs to be put down. Margaret's shrill voice pierced through my phone, rattling me as I stood in the hospital corridor. Around me, the hum of beeping monitors and hushed voices of nurses faded into static. I've already called animal control. They're on their way to your house right now. My stomach dropped. Max, my therapy dog, my partner, my friend, he was home, resting after a long day of comforting sick children. What are you talking about, Margaret? I forced my voice to stay steady. The panic clawed at my throat. Max is a trained therapy dog. He wouldn't hurt anyone. He lunged at me, she gasped, her voice dripping with manufactured fear. I stopped by to drop off groceries, and that beast tried to attack me. I won't let a dangerous animal live next door to my son and grandchildren. I wanted to tell her the truth, that David, my husband, had trained Max with me, that our children adored him. But arguing with Margaret when she was like this was pointless. Instead, I texted David. Your mother called animal control on Max. Get home. Now. My name is Emma, and at 32, I never imagined I'd be racing home from work to save my therapy dog from being euthanized over my mother-in-law's lies. Max had been part of our family for 5 years, ever since I rescued him from a shelter and recognized his gentle, unwavering spirit. With training, he became an essential part of our hospital's therapy dog program, offering comfort to children facing the unimaginable. Margaret, however, had hated Max from the beginning. Not because he was dangerous. He was anything but because she couldn't control him. Unlike her pampered Pomeranians who yapped and obeyed her every whim, Max followed only trained commands. That drove her crazy. He doesn't respect me. She had complained more than once. A dog should obey anyone in the family. I had tried explaining that therapy dogs were trained to respond only to their handlers for safety reasons. But to Margaret, it wasn't about logic, it was about control. As I sped home, my phone buzzed with updates from David. 2 animal control officers here. Mom's putting on a show. A second later, she's crying and showing them a bite mark on her arm. Get here fast, bringing Max's credentials. I pulled into the driveway just as one of the officers was inspecting Margaret's arm. David stood beside Max, who sat calmly in his therapy vest, confused but obedient. That's him, Margaret shrieked, pointing at Max. That's the vicious animal that attacked me. Officer Chen, the woman examining Margaret's arm, frowned. Mom, this appears to be ink. Margaret jerked her arm back. What? No, it's a bite. Are you calling me a liar? I stepped forward, flashing my hospital ID and Max's certification papers. Officers, I'm Emma Mitchell. Max is a certified therapy dog at Children's Memorial Hospital. He helps sick kids get through chemotherapy, surgeries, and trauma. He wouldn't attack anyone. Her partner, Officer Rodriguez, was already scanning Max's credentials. These are all valid. Multiple certifications, routine evaluations. This is an extremely well-trained dog. But he attacked me, Margaret shrieked. I demand you take him away. Officer Chen exchanged a glance with her partner before pulling out her phone. Actually, we have footage from your Ring doorbell camera showing exactly what happened. My breath caught. The camera. I had forgotten about it. She played the video. It showed Margaret arriving, glancing around before digging into her purse and pulling out what appeared to be a marker. Then she drew something on her arm, glanced at the door, and started screaming, while Max remained visible behind the glass door, sprawled peacefully on his bed, never even moving. Silence. Officer Rodriguez turned to Margaret, his expression unreadable. Mrs. Mitchell, filing a false report against a service animal is a serious offense. This isn't just a waste of our time, it could result in criminal charges. Margaret paled. I was just concerned for my family's safety. I tried to have my therapy dog put down. I snapped, unable to hold back. Max helps kids facing some of the worst days of their lives. He sits with them through pain, through fear. And you tried to take that away because you couldn't stand that he wouldn't roll over for you. David, silent until now, finally spoke. Mom, this has to stop. Your obsession with controlling Emma, with controlling Max, it's gone too far. Davy, I was just thinking of you and the children. Margaret's voice softened into the manipulative tone I knew too well. You can't trust these shelter dogs. What if? Mrs. Mitchell, Officer Chen cut in, unimpressed. We need to talk about the legal consequences of your actions. She turned to me. Would you like to press charges? Margaret gasped. Charges? But I'm family. Emma, tell them I'm family. I looked at Max, his brown eyes calm, patient, so different from the venom radiating off Margaret. How many children had he helped? How many people had found comfort in his presence, and she had tried to erase all of that for the sake of her own ego? I exhaled slowly. Then, with absolute certainty, I said, yes, I want to press charges. Margaret whirled to David, her voice shrill. Son, are you going to let her do this to your own mother? David didn't hesitate. He wrapped an arm around me and said quietly, Mom, you did this to yourself. Officer Rodriguez stepped forward. We'll need you to come with us to the station. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Margaret straightened her designer jacket, trying to salvage her dignity. Fine, but this isn't over. As she was led to the patrol car, I knelt beside Max, pressing my forehead to his soft fur. He licked my cheek, the same gentle reassurance he gave to frightened children at the hospital. I'm so sorry, boy, I whispered. I won't let anyone hurt you. David squeezed my shoulder. What do we do now? I stood up, watching the police car disappear down the street. Now, we get ready for tomorrow. Max has appointments with 3 kids starting their first round of chemo. They need him more than ever. Max's tail wagged at the word appointments. He knew what it meant. More children to help, more love to give. And no matter what Margaret tried next, she would never take that away from him. But as I watched the car disappear, I knew this wasn't over. Margaret never accepted defeat easily. And whatever came next, this was only the beginning. The fallout from Margaret's arrest was swift and brutal. Within hours, my phone was flooded with messages from her side of the family, each one dripping with outrage. How could you do this to your mother-in-law? She was only trying to protect the family. You're tearing us apart over a dog. I scrolled through the accusations, my fingers tightening around the phone. Max rested his head on my lap, a silent pillar of comfort. Across the kitchen, David paced, phone pressed to his ear as he argued with his sister, Karen. No, Karen, you don't understand, he said, exasperation lacing his voice. Mom drew fake bite marks on herself and called animal control. She tried to have Max put down. Yes, we have it on video. No, this isn't Emma being dramatic. I shut off my phone and turned my attention to Max's therapy vest, adjusting the straps for tomorrow's hospital visits. There were more important things to focus on. 3 young patients who needed Max's comfort far more than I needed to defend myself against Margaret's flying monkeys. The next morning, as we stepped outside, the sight of our car stopped me cold. The tires had been slashed. A note, tucked under the windshield wiper, sent a chill through me. This is just the beginning. Give up the dog or else. David swore under his breath and immediately called the police. I checked the security cameras and sure enough, Karen's teenage son was caught in the act, taking revenge in Margaret's name. I'm calling a rideshare, I told David, already pulling out my phone. These kids can't wait. Max has work to do. And he did. At the hospital, Max reminded me exactly why we were fighting so hard to protect him. 10-year-old Sophie, one of the twins starting radiation therapy, was trembling with fear until Max rested his head in her lap. Slowly, her tears stopped. He's so soft, she whispered. Will he stay with me? The whole time, I promised. Max never leaves anyone who needs him. Her sister, Sarah, had been trying to be strong for them both, but when Max gently placed his paw in her hand, her own mask cracked. By the time they were led into treatment, their fear had been replaced with quiet determination because Max would be waiting when they came out. Then there was Tommy, the 8-year-old who had survived a car crash that stole his parents. He hadn't spoken a single word since the accident, responding only with nods and head shakes. But when Max trotted into his room, tail wagging, something shifted. Max didn't wait for a command. He walked straight to Tommy's bedside and laid his head beside the boy's hand. Tommy hesitated, then his small fingers reached out, brushing through Max's fur. Dog, he whispered. The nurse gasped, dropping her clipboard. It was the first word he had spoken in 2 weeks. The moment stayed with me long after we left the hospital. But whatever warmth I felt vanished the second we pulled into our driveway. Margaret was standing on our front porch, freshly released on bail. We need to talk, she announced as I stepped out of the car. This has gone far enough. Max pressed close to my side, alert but calm. There's nothing to discuss, Margaret. You tried to have my therapy dog killed and got caught. Whatever happens next isn't up to me. She scoffed. Don't be difficult. I'm offering you a deal. Drop the charges, and I'll help you find a more suitable pet. Something appropriate for children, like my Pomeranians. I let out a short, incredulous laugh. You mean the dogs that actually bit the mailman last month? The ones no one invites to family gatherings because they're aggressive. Her face darkened. That was different. They were protecting their territory. And what was Max doing when you faked those bite marks? Sleeping in his bed, helping no one. I shook my head. Go home, Margaret. We're done here. Her lips curled into a sneer. You're making a huge mistake. Think about David's position at the firm. Think about your children's relationships with their cousins. If you insist on this vendetta, everything could change. I exhaled sharply, anger coiling in my chest. My vendetta. You tried to have an innocent therapy dog euthanized because you couldn't control him. You're the one threatening our family because you got caught in a lie. At that moment, David pulled into the driveway, stepping out with a hardened expression. Mom, you need to leave, he said, his voice firm. Your lawyer advised you to stay away while the case is pending. Margaret's smile turned smug. Oh, I've already handled that. The charges will be dismissed by morning. Judge Patterson is an old family friend, and he agrees this has been blown out of proportion. David and I exchanged a glance. Without a word, I pulled out my phone and hit record. So you're saying you've spoken to the judge presiding over your case? Outside of court, I asked. The color drained from Margaret's face. That's not what I meant. Really? Because it sounded a lot like judicial interference. I tilted my phone, making sure the camera caught everything. I'm sure the DA would be very interested in this conversation. You wouldn't dare, she hissed, but her confidence was unraveling. Try me, I said eagerly. Now leave before we add trespassing to the list. She turned to David, her last hope. Son, are you really going to let her destroy this family? His answer surprised us both. The only one destroying anything is you, Mom. First with your lies about Max, and now with your attempts to manipulate the system. When does it stop? Margaret's face twisted with rage. This isn't over, she spat before storming off. You'll regret this, both of you. As she peeled out of the driveway, David wrapped an arm around me. You okay? I nodded, scratching Max's ears. Better than okay. For the first time, I feel like we're finally standing up to her. Me too, he admitted. But she meant that threat. She's not done. I thought about Sophie and Sarah, about Tommy whispering his first word, about every child who needed Max. Then let her try, I said, because we're not backing down. Max wagged his tail, as if agreeing. We didn't know what Margaret would try next, but whatever it was, we would face it, together. That night, as I curled up on the couch, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. A photo filled the screen, Max's therapy dog certification, burning in what looked like Margaret's fireplace. Below it, a message. Oops, guess he can't work without these. Your move. I showed the screen to David. His jaw tightened, his anger barely contained. But I just smiled. She still doesn't get it, I murmured. She thinks this is about paperwork. David kissed my forehead. And that's exactly why she'll lose. Max lifted his head, his warm brown eyes full of trust. Tomorrow, we deal with whatever came next. But tonight we have this moment, and we weren't afraid. Margaret wanted a war. She had no idea she'd already lost. The following week, Margaret launched her most ruthless attack yet. I arrived at the hospital to find Dr. Chen waiting for me, her expression unreadable. Emma, I'm so sorry, she said. The board is temporarily suspending Max's visits while they conduct an investigation. My stomach dropped. What investigation? She handed me a thick folder. Inside were dozens of formal complaints, all claiming Max had shown aggressive behavior. The reports were signed by different names, but the handwriting was eerily familiar. Margaret, I whispered, fury rising in my chest. She orchestrated all of this because of the charges against her. Dr. Chen nodded. I had my doubts too, which is why I've already started reviewing our therapy session footage. Your mother-in-law didn't realize that all interactions are recorded for liability purposes. Hope flickered, but my mind was on Sophie and Sarah, on Tommy, on all the children who needed Max. What do I tell them? I asked, voice tight. Before Dr. Chen could answer, Tommy's nurse burst into the room, breathless. Emma, you need to come now. Tommy's having a panic attack. He's asking for Max. I bolted down the hall, my heart pounding. Tommy was curled into a ball, gasping for air. When he saw me walk in alone, his eyes filled with tears. Want? Max? He choked out. Then a voice came from behind me. Actually, I have something to show the board right now. David. He stepped forward, holding his laptop. My mother forgot one important thing. My law firm handles the hospital's security footage. He played a compilation of Max's sessions, showing nothing but gentle, healing interactions. But then came the real proof. Recordings of Margaret bribing hospital staff and pressuring them into filing false reports. Within hours, the board reversed its decision. Margaret's plan had backfired spectacularly, adding witness tampering to her growing list of charges. But she wasn't finished yet. That night, as we celebrated Max's reinstatement, we got a call from the police. Mrs. Richardson, your mother-in-law has been arrested, Officer Chen said. She broke into your home. The security footage told the rest of the story. Margaret had entered with a vial of sedatives, clearly meant for Max. But instead of finding him alone, she found Officer Chen, who had been installing additional security measures after her last stunt. This time, the officer continued, there won't be any bail. The case against Margaret was airtight. Between the false reports, tampering, breaking and entering, and attempted animal harm, she had no way out. In the end, she took a plea deal, mandatory psychiatric evaluation, probation, and most importantly, a permanent restraining order keeping her away from us. 6 months later, I watched as Max gently nudged Sophie's hand during her final radiation session. She and her sister were in remission. Tommy had begun speaking in full sentences, often telling Max stories during their visits. He saved us, Sophie's mother said tearfully, not just from the illness, but from the fear. How could anyone try to take that away? I thought about Margaret, now in court-ordered therapy, forced to confront the control she had clung to so desperately. David's relationship with her would never be the same, but we were at peace with that. Max, unaware of the war fought over him, simply continued his work, loving, comforting, healing. Margaret had never understood that his power wasn't in certifications or credentials. It was in his capacity for unconditional love, something she had never learned to give or receive. As we left the hospital, I caught our reflection in the glass. Me, a therapy dog, and the lives he had changed. Margaret had tried to destroy that. She had only made us stronger.